My brother-in-law called me, and his daughter, who my niece is 28 years old, she wants a gun. And many of the extended family don't know anything about guns. They didn't grow up with guns. They've seen TV and they've played video games, but they really don't know how deadly a handgun really is. And that's what she wants, a handgun. So there are two types of handguns that one would consider. One is like this old 45, and you can see this is empty. There are no rounds in it, but it is a semi-automatic handgun, okay? And that semi-automatic handgun carries a number of rounds in a magazine, and you don't know whether it's loaded or anything by looking at it. You don't know. And so we've been taught, and I certainly have been, to believe that any gun that you find like this is armed and ready to shoot. It's dangerous, okay? The other kind of gun is a revolver. And this is the preferred weapon, I think, for individuals who don't know a whole lot about guns, okay? And this is simply a revolver. This is, again, this is fresh out of the box. You can see that it's empty here. There's nothing in the chamber, but it is a revolver, okay? This gun is inherently safer than a semi-automatic handgun. Now, this happens to be a .22 Magnum. It's a Smith & Wesson. And as you can see, there's no hammer. So there's nothing to get caught on, and there's nothing to cock. And what I have determined is, through many years of experience, is that when there's a hammer on a revolver, people somehow feel like they should cock it. And they do. And if it's loaded and then they cock it, how do you think they uncock the weapon? And the answer is, well, they pull the trigger. When you pull the trigger, the hammer goes forward, it taps on the back of a bullet casing, and the weapon discharges. So, better to have it without a hammer on it for people who know very little about guns. The other advantage to these guns is this. I'm going to pull back the cylinder release here, and I'm going to pull the trigger, okay? And when I do that, it takes about 12 pounds of pressure to pull that trigger, okay? In a semi-automatic handgun, we're talking 2 pounds, maybe 3 pounds, nothing. So it's very difficult for someone to pull the trigger on a revolver, not very difficult on a semi-automatic handgun. And that's why I think, in the context of people who don't know a lot about guns, it's much safer to have a revolver. And there are other advantages as well. For example, with a revolver, if I simply, now you can see that it's unloaded here, okay? But if I were to close this and I were to try to pull the trigger while my hand is on this, there is no earthly way I'm going to be able to pull the trigger. It will not go off because the cylinder must rotate in order for the internal hammer to come back and then release and discharge the weapon. So if I grab it like this, it's not going to go off. That is not true with a semi-automatic handgun. When the hammer's back, I can do this all I want, but you can see it's going to discharge. Now that's a problem for people who don't know anything about handguns. So my recommendation is that if you're going to assist someone in identifying a firearm that they might use, who has no experience with the firearm at all, please don't get them a semi-automatic handgun. And there's even one more thing that's important. Semi-automatic handguns have a spring in the magazine, and that spring gets tired over time. And when it gets tired, it won't function properly. So you might be able to get your semi-automatic handgun to fire one time, but after that, it's a brick.